Our adoption story started long before I even knew it was an adoption story. So when I was 10 years old, God spoke to me and told me that I was going to have a son who's black and I was going to have biracial children. And so I told my dad I was going to be marrying a black man, and that was not Austin. And so anyways, down the road we got married and we started having miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And it was really hard and really broken. And we did not feel called at that point to adoption. But my third miscarriage, I felt like God told me on my birthday, I was miscarrying on my birthday, and I felt like God said, I want you to buy a journal and I want you to write a prayer in it. And so I took my journal and I just said, God, I gave you my pen and I ask you to be the author. And I pray you write my story. This has been a really sad year. We've lost 2 babies in a year, but you be the author. And I just pray for your will and adoption and full life in my womb. An hour later, the pastor, the church we went to, the pastor's wife called and said, God spoke to me, you're gonna have Christmas in July. And then the next hour, I get a call, and I was working at the Lighthouse as an adoption caseworker with birth moms. And I get a call from the lawyer, and he's like, hey, we have an adoption. I said, okay, I'll get my pen. And he said, no, Julie, it's a private adoption, and I just can't get you and your husband out of my head and out of my heart. I don't know if you're even thinking about adoption. And so we got to meet we got to meet our son, and we got to meet his birth mom and his grandma, and Troy came home July 25th, Christmas in July.
Lord in the Bible talks about, burdens, but there's healthy burdens that are good for your soul, good for your family, good for your neighbors, good for your church. And that's definitely, we felt like came a little more easily for us especially as we were starting our family. So I can understand how people say, hey, I've got all these worries and concerns and how I'm going to afford, and it's just like, the Lord's like, I will take care of that. Give that to me. I want to take care of that. I want to care for that. Don't let those things come in the way. What I want to see done, because I move mountains, and these kids are so important to me, and He will move mountains for those things, and so, is it going to be hard? Yes, but no. I mean, of course, that first thing, you got to get all the stuff, but in the end, it's what it's what's really required of us, what we're supposed to be doing. So it's such a great, healthy burden to carry, and I think there's not that many unsuccessful stories when it's God's time and it's His thing that He's doing.
I think the impact adoption's had, it's made me realize, like when Jesus said, for the joy set before us, the Lord endured the cross. And so for me to realize how God builds family and how God's heart's always adoption, that He adopted us and we feel that and we're His children and there's no question. I don't call myself His adopted daughter, I call myself His daughter. He says Abba Father, my daddy, so close to the heart. And so when we adopted one, I think that adoption, it's so true when you adopt, that our kids, our son, they're our sons by adoption, they're our sons. And having that, and then the joy and the sadness, I think you have to recognize both. That just in life you can hold joy and sadness together. So I think it's important for us just to enter that story. And I think that has a lot of story of Christ, how God gave His only Son for the joy set before Him. The Lord endured the cross so He could adopt us.